Last year at E3, whilst on the PlayStation press event, Capcom announced the next installment to the Resident Evil series, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, to a mixture of excitement and fear. While people praised the developers for giving gamers a chance to play a tease set shortly before the events of the main game, this also had a lot of fans worried that this was an attempt to pander to fans of games like Outlast, Amnesia and Alien Isolation. While I have been cautiously hopeful that this new approach would be the change that the series needed, more so after the action-based horror entries, I have to say that this game not only works as a great way to tell a narrative that feels like a Resident Evil title of the past, but also the new shifting camera angle helps give gamers a chance to experience a new take on survival horror and feel as vulnerable as at the same time. Resident Evil 7 puts you in control of a character called Ethan Winters, who has been looking into the mysterious disappearance of his wife Mia. When he receives an email telling him to go to the Baker farm in a fictional part of Louisiana, Ethan walks into a living nightmare that he needs to survive and find the answers he is looking for. While the story isn't over the top like in Resident Evil 6, what this game does well is portray a compelling story that will grip you until the end of the game. And while at times the game drags on, the story leaves you with more than a few questions than answers, which feels like it will be answered in either DLC down the line or maybe in Resident Evil 8. What makes this game fun is the level design of the Baker's residence. While on the surface it looks like a normal mansion, it features different areas of the house that feels used but also out of place. The best example of that is finding a morgue and a fighting pit. While exploring the Baker residence, it invokes a feeling of why does this feel familiar, and this is where factors of Resident Evil and the remake start to creep in. With backtracking and save rooms featured in the game, this brings gamers back to the classic mansion. This also includes some of the classic puzzles like using a broken shotgun to get a working one. However, it also features a mechanic not seen since Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, that is crafting ammo for the different weapons featured in the game. In addition, there are VHS tapes scattered around the Baker's house, and these give you small insights to the different characters in the game, but it also gives you information in regarding key items that are in new areas of the plantation. When it comes to the new perspective of the game, I had a feeling that this will control a lot like Call of Duty or Battlefield 1. However, the controls in the game feel very much like the classic tank controls, which can cause moments of terror when cornered by enemies in the game. The game has a new variation of zombie creatures called the Moulded. The design is both great and disgusting to look at, and when you enter infected rooms, they can attack players a lot like the xenomorphs in the James Cameron movie Aliens. However, the main problem is that there isn't many variations of them, and for a game to feature 4 different types of moulded monster is a bit of a letdown. In fact, I would have much liked to have seen some of the classic monsters like hunters or lickers to return to this game. Also, without the addition of these different enemies, the house seems barren and bare of any major threat, more so once the bosses of each area has been dealt with. While the game does a lot to invoke the feeling of classic Resident Evil with save room, backtracking and puzzles, I feel that the puzzles felt like an afterthought. While the shadow locks was a great idea, I felt that the lack of any real brain taxing puzzles let the game down a lot. While dying in the game is a commonplace, more so in normal and madhouse modes, the loading screens take forever to load up. So for myself, sitting through these screens drained the momentum out of the game. While I found most of the boss battles to be excellently designed and thought out, I feel that the final boss of the game is a massive letdown. It just felt uninspired, which is a shame because the section leading up to the final battle had come up with some great questions which I hope they'll explore later on in DLC. But the biggest problem with the game is the fact there isn't much of a replayability factor for it. Unless you want to say that you've got every trophy or achievement, which includes a speedrunning one, it feels like this could be a game where you play it a few times and then put it back on the shelf of your collection. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is perhaps a great way to reinvent the series, and much like Resident Evil 4 when it was released in 2005, it breathed new life into the series that had been slowly getting stale. While there is always going to be the fans that would love to see the fixed camera angles return, I am sure there will be fans wanting to see the third person as well. What Resident Evil 7 does well is take a great risk in trying a new view for the game. Its biggest success is making the story stand out as a generally interesting and stripped-back adventure. While the Bakers have replaced many of the classic style bosses from the past titles, these characters give off a complete different feel to each part of the house that they are in. Also, one of the big factors I feel Capcom have done right is successfully return to the series' roots. Regardless if you're playing with a high quality headset or if you're lucky enough to own a PlayStation VR, the sound and visuals help to sell the horror. However, with a linear story which once completed, unless you decide to complete all the achievements, you'll probably sit on your shelf until you're ready to play it once again. With a mixture of long loading screens and some uninspired puzzles, and a final boss which is actually forgettable, those are the only faults I have with the game. However, even with all the negatives mentioned about it, it's an excellent game to play, and if you've been a Resident Evil fan frustrated by the direction of the series since Resident Evil 4, then you'll end up enjoying this game. If you're a fan of horror games in general, I have a feeling you'll end up enjoying this title as well. If Capcom can keep this style of horror coming for the future, I have a feeling they could be on for a winner.